Welcome back to another snorkeling adventure. Tonight, I'm with my friends David and Zach. We're gonna snorkel 10 springs in one night. So tonight, we're canoeing down about 9 miles of a spring-fed river. The river itself is kind of tannic and brown looking, but there's a ton of different crystal clear springs that flow into it. We're gonna try to snorkel 10 of them tonight and see what kind of wildlife is hanging out in the dark and see what kind of snorkeling adventure unfolds. It's about 10 o'clock right now. We've already done almost 2 miles of the river. We're kind of jumping right in the action here. Our goal is to try and get to the end by sunrise. I'm not really sure if that's gonna happen or not, but we're going for it. So it's gonna be a long night. It's gonna be some great snorkeling. Hope you guys enjoy coming along on this night dive, and we'll see you out there. You know what time it is. It is time to suit up.
You need help?
Thank you. Hardest part is over with. Now we got like 6 more hours.
Woo, baby!
So the springs along this river system are pretty diverse. Some are like really small, have pretty low flows, and there's some are huge. For some of them, we'll just have tennis shoes on, snorkeling, and others we'll get our free diving fins on, go a little bit deeper. First spring's right ahead. All right, spring number 1, here we go. At spring number 1, the water was dark. Well, obviously because it's night, but what I mean is it wasn't the crystal blue color that's characteristic of a lot of Florida springs. A shag carpet of algae billowed about as spring water rushed out to meet the river. All of a sudden, a little creature emerged from the carpet, a hog choker. Hog chokers are a small type of sole or flatfish. They're very well camouflaged and are easy to miss, but in this situation, white on green isn't a great recipe for stealth. The site where water actually comes up out of the ground from a spring is called a vent, and this spring's vent was located immediately on the side of the river, and it was actually kind of down and underneath the bank. At first, it only looked like a couple cracks in the rock, but the longer we looked, we realized there was a whole series of deep holes that went way back. I somehow spotted the backside of a common snapping turtle, just barely poking out from beneath some hanging tree roots. This might seem like an odd position for a turtle, but squeezing up into a place like this is a snapping turtle's bread and butter. I got distracted by some nearby mats of floating vegetation. The low river levels seemed to allow a lot more veg mats to collect than usual. But Zach was still looking in the hole and called out that he saw an alligator appear and disappear within the spring vents. We took a careful peek, but it had vanished. It's a good reminder that poking your head in dark holes in a Florida river isn't exactly a top 10 safe activity, and also that this is not a beginner-level snorkeling adventure by any means. We bring a lot of experience to this adventure, but even then, there is still risk. All right, we're off to spring number 2. We've arrived at the next spring, and the water level is pretty crazy. Normally all of this is underwater, but not today.
Is the boat pulled up enough?
Yeah, we're good. All right, here goes spring number 2. Spring number 2 has actually been on the channel before. I think it's called Snorkeling at Green Spring at Night. But tonight, the color yellow was probably more fitting. Normally springs are 72 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. In the summertime it feels cool, but this spring felt warm and gross. I was actually pretty confused. The water was extremely hazy, and although the visibility isn't usually the best at this location as far as springs go, this was really bad. I swam out to the middle over the spring vent, and normally I can see all the way to the bottom, so to investigate further I grabbed a breath and dove down through the haze. Finally, the water cleared as I reached the vent, but since this night, I later learned that it's been confirmed that the spring has stopped flowing and is no longer open for swimming. Springs rely on recharge from rainfall to sustain their flow, but severe drought combined with unsustainable use of spring water has nearly killed this spring. Hopefully it will bounce back with additional rainfall, but it's scary to see that a reality where this ecosystem can just flat out die is not so far away. On the bright side, there were quite a few predaceous diving beetles zooming about. It's always cool to see a bug swimming. These inch-long little guys are basically scuba certified as they trap air bubbles under their wings and draw from them as they hunt for pretty much anything they can get their legs on. We are acquiring some treasures along the way. I guess someone left this float here, which is now trash, but I think we'll find a use for it tonight before it goes home and makes its way into the trash can.
My head.
For now, well, you gotta lean a ways back. Hey, you just look at the stars while we go down the river. An alligator. I saw his eye shine up ahead and he just dipped. See if we can see him when we go over, or if he skedaddled to the side and just vanished into the green. He's only like 5 feet. I don't know if you can see, but there's deer in the distance across the river. It's pretty cool. Man, underwater shot of a deer swimming. That'd be sick.
That'd be amazing.
Maybe one day. I got a hitchhiker. Cool bug. I think we're good, Zach. Pretty deep. We're getting attacked by mullet. Yo! Oh! Alright, we were just cruising along and we saw an alligator snapping turtle pretty much just out in the open in the middle of the river. I don't know if we're gonna be able to find him again, but we're gonna try. I didn't see him. There he goes. Wow, what an amazing animal. Wow, that is crazy.
Did we get anything?
Let's see. I'm a little concerned because of that alligator.
Yeah.
And we don't know what size it is. So hang on. Holy cow. What a critter. After confirming that a nearby alligator was very small and disinterested in us, we decided to try to carefully get an underwater look at the alligator snapping turtle. We parked the canoe on the side of the river and swam past some aquatic plants until finally that big yellow head loomed into view. This alligator snapping turtle is a protected species, so we wanted to be sure we didn't bother it, and as soon as it decided to leave, we would too. Despite their size, these animals are incredibly secretive, and even at night, seeing one in the open is super rare. He looked at us somewhat incredulously for a couple minutes and then just lumbered off into the dark. Well, that was pretty unexpected and awesome. Pretty special to get to see one of those guys in the wild any day, especially in that clear water. So cool.
That was amazing. Yeah, it's beautiful.
We are making very slow progress. It's 12:08 right now. We've only done 2 springs. We may pull a wild card rule. If you see an alligator snapping turtle, that's one less spring you have to snorkel in. But I don't know. We're going to still give it a shot. So we go onward. All right. Spring number 3 is right here. This one's pretty cool. I've actually never seen it before because it's normally totally flooded by river water. But river's so low, it's pretty exposed. Got the little trickle coming out of the crack there. Time to get snorkeling. We kind of got to get this show on the road because it's like 12:30 and we're only on spring number 3. Spring number 3.
I just don't want to make holes in the wetsuit either.
Spring number 3 was a little more blue than the previous ones. However, as this one's typically completely buried beneath layers of river water, there wasn't a whole lot of aquatic plant action going on. However, there was still a handful of wildlife that had taken up residence. The first resident to make an appearance was the spring crayfish. From this spring forward, we started to see these guys almost everywhere, usually given away by the white tubercles speckling their claws. Spring crayfish are a pretty big crayfish species and can get over 6 inches long. We humans may have been fighting off waves of sleepiness, but this nocturnal crustacean's night was just getting started. And then a quick movement caught my eye as a slender creature emerged from a hole and began cruising over the rocky edge of the spring. This is a tadpole madtom, and I'm pretty sure it's my first time actually seeing one. Madtoms are a type of catfish, and they don't get very big. This one is actually full grown. In this instance, we actually have a case of an excellent name. They really do look like a tadpole. These fish have venomous spines on their back and sides that help to deter predators that are unfortunate enough to bite down on them. Apparently to a human, it feels like a bee sting. This is indeed a cool cat. Spring number 4. Pretty cool. Pretty small, but it's doing pretty good. Spring number 4 was very small, but as it turned out, there was quite a lot to see. The trees lining this tiny little blue oasis had tons of fuzzy roots that branched out into the clear water, sucking up nutrients and, based on their green color, were even doing a bit of photosynthesizing. Beneath the tree roots, I stumbled across this fellow, a loggerhead musk turtle, so called for their comically large head. If you're new here, these guys get confused for baby snapping turtles all the time, but this 8-inch little tank is a full-grown adult. Once again, this spring was also flowing out from beneath the ledge on the bank. As I looked down into the crack of the main vent, I noticed a bit of movement. There was a small school of what I think are young channel catfish, all swimming tightly together inside the vent. Until this moment, I've never really thought of a catfish as cute, but sheesh, look at that little whiskered fish face. What's not to love? And then, a dark fish with a wild secret descended over the spring vent. There's a fish out here that has its anus is on its throat.
What the?
It's called a pirate perch.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyways, yeah, pirate fish are pretty weird. These fish are solitary and nocturnal and will patrol the darkness for small insects and fish. I guess hence the name pirate fish. But this is about where their anus is located. This is probably my favorite fish fact that I've learned recently. It's so cool. And then resting on the bottom of this tiny spring run was a beautiful spotted sunfish. Whole lot of action for such a small aquatic ecosystem. Spring number 5. Spring number 5 was yet another blue spring. It was a bit larger than the others we had explored so far, as the water flowing out of the spring vent created a wide bowl that was lined with tiny shells all along the bottom. There are a lot of fish hanging out here, mostly around the underwater ledges surrounding the spring vent, and especially quite a few Florida bass. Some are still busy cruising around in the dark, but the majority seem to be bedded down for the night. As it turns out, some roommates apparently get along better than others. We've officially hit the halfway point, done 5 springs, and it is 2 a.m. Spring number 6. It's actually a little too shallow for us to get up to it. We're gonna snorkel on the confluence where the spring run meets the river and call it even. The biggest springs of the night still lay ahead, so the guys opted to save their strength for those springs while I hopped in to check out the end of the run of spring number 6. While there wasn't much to report wildlife-wise, there was an abundance of aquatic vegetation. Many of these springs get trampled during the summer. That's why they often have those characteristic sandy bottoms. But springs naturally have a diverse collection of underwater plant life. It's a tough balance of providing access to the public and protecting the environment. A large section of this particular run is closed to swimming and wading, which has allowed the aquatic plants to thrive. Even in the area outside the protected zone of this spring, where I was, there are still some pretty sweet aquatic vistas. There's kind of a lot clustered here, and it's a little less natural setting than the other ones are, but the springs geologically are pretty phenomenal. So we're gonna get our fins on, get our free dive / snorkel on, and check them out. Spring number 7, here we go. Wait, yeah, this is spring number 7. Is this spring? Okay, cool. Okay, good. It's 2:30, and it's all running together in my mind. Spring number 7 was a large circular pit that dropped down about 20 feet from the surface. The water here was the clearest and bluest yet. I took a breath and headed down for a long dive to the bottom of the pit and then sideways into the spring vent. This shot is an uncut dive. Now remember, freediving in an overhead environment is very dangerous. My friends and I are familiar with this spot and are operating well within our limits. This isn't a place you want to show off or push it. Although the spring was mostly devoid of life, the limestone formations of the cave were beautiful. This is an entry point into the Florida Aquifer, the system of underground waterways that underlies much of the state of Florida. Rainwater and runoff become groundwater as they filter through soil and rock and replenish this subterranean reservoir, which in turn supplies water to all of Florida's springs. I'm no cave diver, and I'm 100% okay with that, but I can only imagine the eerie beauty of the endless maze of aquatic caverns that run like blood vessels beneath this landscape. We headed back up to the surface and caught our breath for a while, and then headed back down to take a closer look at the walls of the vent. The limestone looked whitewashed and was almost glowing in the light of my dive lights. Scattered about on the ceiling were what looked like upside-down puddles. These are air bubbles, likely expelled from cave divers and freedivers that gets trapped in the contours of the limestone. They're pretty trippy to look at, like liquid mirrors or pools of mercury that seem to somehow defy gravity. They're pretty fun to play with, but it was high time to breathe again, so back out I went after David and Zach and up to the surface. Turns out these springs weren't completely devoid of life, as little hog choker was resting at the edge. This little dude was like a tiny alien on a desolate planet overlooking the cosmic abyss. Moving on to spring number 8. This spring is the largest one of the night, and not just in terms of sheer size, but also the volume of its output. Springs are classified by magnitude based on the volume of water they pump out daily. This is a first magnitude spring, meaning it cranks out more than 65 million gallons of water each day. This is in contrast to the smallest springs we explored tonight, springs number 1 and number 4, which are third magnitude springs, pumping out between 0.65 and 6.5 million gallons of water per day. This spring had a giant tree trunk lying directly across the hole, so I grabbed a breath and headed down for an almost uncut freedive shot. This spring was situated on the bottom of the side of the river. Normally, a tea-stained layer of river water clouds above it, but with the low water levels, things were pretty clear all around. The vent narrowed at the bottom, and we weren't looking to squeeze into anything, so we mostly just looked at the walls of this aquatic pit. I noticed a few fish hiding in some of the holes and cracks in the limestone, and then on the way back up, I passed a couple of springs crayfish that were duking it out. Well, you can't really see it, but I'm holding up 9 fingers for spring number 9. I handed the camera to David and set my dive light to infinity lightsaber mode and worked my way down into the spring. This one was really just a narrow crack. At this point, for some reason my ear had kind of stopped up and wouldn't clear very well, so I wasn't able to go super deep. But although this spring was once again geologically pretty stunning, it was mostly just interesting designs and colors in the limestone that got progressively narrower as you went down. So after a little bit of time here, we swam back over the completely barren spring run and back to the canoe for one final snorkel. So it looks like we may hit all 10 springs, but it is 4:19 in the morning. We're really tired. We've got one more left. Boys are still doing good. But yeah, we're gonna go do it, and then so we can go home and go to sleep, probably way after the sun has gone up. 10 springs in one night is gonna happen. All right, spring number 10. Woohoo! Here we go. How you feeling, Zach?
Cold, man. Cold. Not gonna lie.
After the mostly lifeless environments of the last few springs, it was nice to see that spring number 10 had some green. Although, unfortunately, this is hygrophila, which is an invasive, so, oh well. There were once again plenty of springs crayfish wandering about. This guy had some very prominent tubercles, but he was shy and Homer Simpsoned his way back into the bushes. And then finally I got a glimpse of one of the mullet that had been launching themselves at us all night. I thought that might be it for the night, but then in the distance I spotted a long speckled fish poking out of the vegetation. This is a highly wary species that I rarely encounter, the chain pickerel. I slowly drifted my way over to the fish, and to my great stoke, he held. Chain pickerel are in the pike family. Although they don't get nearly as large as their northern relatives, these 1 to 2 foot long fish are skilled ambush predators. They have a duck-billed shaped mouth that's lined with small sharp teeth, and there's also a bit of an underbite going on there. As exhausted as I was, finally getting a chance to take an up-close look at this little predator was pretty awesome. Spring number 10 ended up delivering. Definitely not a bad way to end a very long night of snorkeling. Is that the end of it?
Yeah.
Nice. So I don't know if you can tell, but it is starting to get light out. It's 5:56 a.m. We still got a little ways to go. We'll see if we can beat this sunrise. We have like 30 minutes on the dot. Whoa. Whoa, look up there, look up there. Look at the owls, the 2 owls side by side. Maybe get a mate or something? I think it's 2 barred owls. That's so cool.
Light, but I don't.
Nah, that's okay.
How about that?
Oh, cool sound. What?
Go right.
Go right? Oh, yeah. Oh, man. You really meant go right. I thought you meant just sort of go right.
Oh.
We just barely pulled this off. David, Zach, and I all discovered the world of freshwater springs together in college, and it was neat to get to share this sleep-deprived snorkeling adventure with them. The diversity of the springs and all life they support, even in the dark, is pretty amazing, and to experience so much in a single night is a privilege we don't take lightly. But in the years we've spent snorkeling, we've seen a lot of these ecosystems change dramatically. I mean, seeing spring number 2 on death's door was alarming, to say the least. I hope that even in 50 years from now, these springs will endure, so that, if we're still alive, the 3 of us can hop in a canoe at an ungodly hour and snorkel our hearts out, running on sugar-free Red Bull, underwater stoke, and a dream of a world that believes protecting aquatic ecosystems of all types and sizes is a worthwhile endeavor. We did it. 10 springs, 1 night, all before sunrise. Great all-around snorkeling adventure, but man, that's a lot for 1 night. As always, thank you guys for coming along on yet another snorkeling adventure, sticking with us through the night, and we'll see you. We'll see you next time. Gotta go home and get some sleep. That's how much water ended up in the canoe. It's kind of a lot.